News Channel 3.
Welcome back, everybody, to more continuing live coverage of the Thomas Fire. I'm CJ Ward.
And I'm Beth Farnsworth, and we are expecting the County of Santa Barbara and CAL FIRE holding that community meeting starting at 4 o'clock at San Marcos High School.
We'll hopefully get more information, updated numbers, acreage, number of firefighters, all that stuff that we've been talking about for the last 4 days. But first, let's go out to John Palmentary. He's live out in Carpinteria. And John, you're with a bunch of firefighters right now.
We are in the Santa Monica Canyon, and we are up here where they are fighting fire with fire. The Santa Monica Road Canyon is up above Carpinteria to the west. I'm stepping out of the way as we can see fire in the hills right behind us here in the area that is previously unburned. This fire was started a short time ago intentionally by the fire department, the hotshot crews, and look at it go here in the hills above Carpinteria as they are burning this fire back into itself because of favorable winds that is blowing the fire they just started back up the ridge line and over into a burned area. Eventually, when it all dies down, it'll make a wider edge to the fire front and keep it from spreading into homes and other properties to the west where it has been marching. The winds were onshore earlier today. Now they're blowing back onto the footprint of the fire, and that's perfect, a perfect condition to fight this fire with its own space and its own fire. And crews are here from the Ojai Sundowner crew and the Santa Barbara County crew, Marin and Los Angeles County, working in a unified front. And if we pan over to the right, you can see the whole line of firefighters, and they work on the edge. And this road will be a fuel break as well. And they are going to be using a petroleum type fuel that starts the fire with a big red canister they'll dip down in there and start fire, and also have a gun that shoots a big flare into the brush and it starts that on fire. So that's what you're going to be seeing, a lot of embers coming up and smoke from the front country, and this will be a sign that this canyon is on fire as part of an intentional strategic move to have fire fight fire by running into itself and burning itself out before it gets to homes or into other canyons or more into more populated areas. It's a strategy that's been used many, many times by fire departments, and what they also do is line the fire scene with the firefighters on both sides, and they aren't watching this fire like we are. They're turning around here, they're watching the hills behind us, because if any sparks carry over, they're going to see the smoke and the starts and go after that, and that's not where they want it to go. So they watch that way and we watch this way. And then down here, they're progressively moving down this rail, and they are starting the fire all the way around that bend and down into the canyon. And that's going to be going on for some time. But the temperatures are cool. There's very little wind, and what wind we have is going that way. And that's the way that the fire's already been burnt out. So this canyon will burn out. And if they don't do this, and it catches on fire and the winds are blowing to the west, then it will spread to the west by just continuing to go through here. It's going to sacrifice some of the land, but this is a very efficient way to fight fire with fire. If we can walk down here, you can see the huge ball of flames that's coming up behind this oak tree, which means it's down into a deep canyon. And these firefighters are extremely confident in what they have done here, and they've done this before. They know the terrain, the weather, the fuels, and more. And it's going to be burning itself out in this canyon, and still the winds are blowing it away from us. There's not an ember coming this way at all. And look at the flames that are just boiling up from the bottom of this canyon. And there goes a lot of oak trees down in there, old fuels that have been in this canyon for years on the top of Santa Monica Canyon on the western end of the Carpinteria Valley. The skies out in front of us are blue, but the brown, dirty smoke coming up from this fire is going to turn that sky a rusty brown down below, and it'll look like the fire's out of control, but this is a controlled burn and a very planned strategy. They've been working on this all day to get different fuel breaks in place before they say it was time to start the backfire, using the flare guns and also the gel, the fire petroleum gel out of the cans that they use along the edge of this fire line. And this is about as close as you can get to the wildland fire, a strategic approach to fighting fire, with these crews coming together in a united front from several different agencies: Los Angeles, Marin, Ojai, and Santa Barbara County, calling the shots here to get this canyon burnt out. And this is the Rancho Alegre site here above Carpinteria that has some of the very old fuels, and some of the properties here date back to land grants and purchases in the 1900s. And I believe there's 18 parcels up here on this road high above the Carpinteria Valley. So they're going to continue down, as you see, down the walkway here, and continue to light this up. And again, the winds are going away from the firefighters and right into areas that have already been burned, and that's where the fire is going to be going. And it's hot, it's active, and it's successful so far, because nothing has jumped the road and the fire is controlled, not out of control here in this burn. So that's the very latest here up above the Carpinteria Valley. More fire starting behind us, and they're going to continue to burn in a favorable way here and in other sectors of the Thomas Fire, as a way to fight fire with fire and get it burnt out before it goes on the offensive attack and go out of bounds and go into other areas. That's the very latest. I'm John Palmentary on the scene of a backburn, sending it back to you.
Really incredible to see that,
It is.
and to see how they split up, watching one direction, watching the other direction, to make sure it goes the way they want it to.
Very strategic stuff that we were seeing right there. And we don't get the chance to see that too often on live TV.
That is a big deal.
So if you're wondering where John is, he said he was up in the Santa Monica Canyon. We think we found the spot here on our ways. You can see there is some active flame going up into these canyons here. You can see Santa Monica Road, Monte Alegre. We talked about that spot yesterday. I know John went live from that area as well. And so he's up into that main canyon right there.
You could see how old those oak trees were.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see them go. And as John said, we're sacrificing land so we can keep the homes. And they use that gel, that retardant gel, if you will. I think it's the same thing that they use for homes that are being threatened.
Yeah, it's not real active right now, but there's enough to where if it flared up again, they want to have a barrier that backfire they're creating right now. They want that there just in case. That's one of their contingency lines. If this fails, then if we can't stop it here, we're going to stop it here.
And again, they only do this, CJ, when they know the winds are favorable for what the direction that they're pushing for.
Absolutely. But the last thing they want to do is create a bigger problem for themselves. So, yeah, I'm sure they know the winds are cooperating with what they want to do. Then they pick a spot exactly where they want to do it, because they know what the fire behavior is going to be, and then they burn it back. And this will be, as John just said, this will end up being a huge fire break at some point. And if the head of the main fire ever reaches this point, it'll just stop. And that's what they want.
They've got dozens of crew members there, and it's really interesting to hear the history. John talked about the land grants dating back to the early 1800s, and something like, more than a dozen parcels there. So that really is old growth that we're looking at, that they're burning back right now.
In case you're wondering, we are waiting for this 4 p.m. community meeting scheduled to start at 4 o'clock. They don't always start right on time. In this case, it's good because it gives us a chance to actually see what's going on up in some of these canyons with the firefighters, and John Palmentary is embedded with them right now as they're setting this backfire up in what John said is Santa Monica Canyon area, and so that's just above Carp, up in those foothills. And this is an area probably last night when we were maybe 11 o'clock or so, when it was all lit up. That's going up into one of those canyons probably, I would imagine.
Right. Wondering, is Alan standing by? I want to get a quick update from you before we go to this town hall meeting that's supposed to start within minutes about that, Alan, what we just saw.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned, they're starting the fires, they're fighting fire with fire, and it doesn't appear to be as active today as what we saw about 36 hours ago, even last night. And I think because of that, the smoke has sort of thinned out a bit across the south coast. Still thick enough, though, that you want to wear the mask. We're not out of the woods yet. Still very unhealthy air quality up and down the south coast and even into the San Ynez Valley and parts of the Lompoc Valley. I've also heard from a few viewers that we're seeing people using those leaf blowers. Do not do that. Do not clean the cars yet. You want to wait until the ash is done falling, and the best advice is to wet a rag or a t-shirt and wipe it up that way. Otherwise, you blow it back into the air. You can inhale it and cause it to sit in your lungs even longer. A red flag warning has been canceled for Santa Barbara County. Continues for Ventura County. I think the press conference is about to get underway. So CJ and Beth, send it back to you.
Okay, we'll go right out to that right now and listen in for the very latest on the fire.
There's a few people here that are going to help us today, one of which is Naira Pacheco. This is Naira. Can you say hi to Naira? Yeah. Naira is going to be providing Spanish translation, so if you speak Spanish, more comfortable hearing that way, we're going to have headsets that are available in the back. Naira will be providing simultaneous translation while we're doing our meeting. So thank you, Naira.
Muy buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Naira Pacheco, soy parte de Comunidades Justas y junto con mi pareja Marla Arciéniga, que está atrás, vamos a estar proviendo interpretación de inglés a español para todos los que lo necesiten aquí. Hello, good evening, my name is Naira Pacheco and I am with Just Communities, and along with my partner Marla Arciéniga, we are going to be providing English to Spanish interpretation for today's event. Algo para que sepan, pueden ir a recoger sus aparatos de traducción atrás, enfrente del auditorio. Para el final, para el tiempo de preguntas y respuestas, si necesitan interpretación, van a poder levantar las manos y nosotros vamos a escuchar su mensaje y poder traducirlo de español a inglés. So at any point you can go back to the front of the auditorium and pick up translation equipment, and then when it comes to the Q&A portion of the event, we'll be able to go to you and relay your message from Spanish to English. So if you do have any problems with your equipment throughout the event, you can raise your hand and we'll have somebody run over to you. Si tiene cualquier problema con su aparato durante el evento, puede levantar la mano y nosotros podemos ir a ustedes. Gracias.
I'd also like to recognize we have a couple members from the Santa Barbara Response Network. Could you guys stand and fantastic. They're here if you'd just like to talk to somebody throughout the meeting, you'd like somebody just to sit by you, you'd like some support, they're here for you. All right, and with that, I'd like to introduce your Fire Chief, Santa Barbara County Fire Chief Eric Peterson.
Well, welcome everybody. We're glad you're here. We appreciate the opportunity to give you the latest update and the most current information we can. You're going to hear tonight from the very best people we have available on this fire. They're all sitting over here for you. They're all waiting to talk. Before we begin, I want to recognize a few people that are here tonight. If you could hold your applause until I get through this list. I'm going to start with Joan Hartman, our County Chair of the Board of Supervisors. We have 2nd District Supervisor Janet Wolf, 1st District Supervisor Doss Williams, Assembly Member Monique Limon, City of Santa Barbara Mayor Helene Schneider, City of Santa Barbara City Manager Paul Casey, City Council Member-elect Eric Friedman. We have Santa Barbara City Mayor-elect and current Council Member Kathy Murillo, Santa Barbara City Council Member-elect Kristen Snedden. We have Santa Barbara Unified Superintendent of Schools Kenny Matsuoka, Fran Wagonek, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Goleta Mayor Paula Perotti, Goleta City Council Member Michael T. Bennett, Goleta Water District Board Member Lauren Hanson, Goleta City Manager Michelle Green. We have with us Fire Chief of Carpinteria Summerlin, Ray Navarro. Ray Navarro, I want to point out, is bearing the brunt of the western edge of this fire right now, so we appreciate him being here. Chief of Montecito Fire Department, Chip Hickman, is also with us. He's next in line on the western edge of the fire. Pancho Smith from the Los Padres National Forest. We have Representative from Hannah Beth Jackson, Brad Hudson. And representing Congressman Salud Carbajal, we have Chris Henson, and Wendy Mata has joined us. And Isla Vista Community Services District Head Ethan Bertrand and Spencer Brandt. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. It means It means a lot that you guys are all here. Pat McElroy from City Fire is also here. I think I might have missed him. All right. We are making some steady progress on this fire. It may be difficult to see, but steady progress is occurring. The weather is giving us a break. We've had some really good help from the weather on the western edge of the fire. The fire is backing instead of being wind-driven on that western edge. You're seeing some activity from large air tankers on that western edge. If you've been able to look up there recently, you've seen the DC-10 and the 747, which had the smoke conditions have cleared sufficiently for those kinds of operations to occur. Just a quick update on acreage. We're at 230,500, not much of an increase from the last time you heard from us, which is good news. There are now 6,400 men and women putting themselves at risk on the fire. We have 100,000 people under evacuation order, 28 helicopters, several air tankers, as I mentioned, the 747 and the DC-10. We put 1.7 million gallons of water on the fire from those various sources. 85 fire engines are currently deployed in Carpin, Montecito to combat that threat from that western edge of the fire. And with that, I would like to give you our next speaker, who is going to be our own Chris Childers, our operations chief on the fire. Thank you very much.
Good evening, folks. Chris Childers, Battalion Chief with Santa Barbara County Fire Department, and stuck playing ops on this little fire. Obviously, it's not little. So the fire has grown a little bit today, not too much. Fortunately, we did not have a repeat of the heavy easterly wind. So where the night before last it moved about 6 miles into the county, last night we had much less movement, and the fire has slowed down up on the Camino Cielo and in the front country. So we're in here past Santa Monica Canyon, up to Toro Saddle, and through Toro Saddle a little bit. We've now had a little bit of activity on the backside that's threatening Romero Saddle, and we are spending everything we can to try and hold it in Toro Canyon right now, Toro Saddle at the top of Toro Canyon Road. And so our whole effort right now, or not our whole effort, a major effort is being put into catching this flank right here. And if we can do that, we will have completely, or at least slowed down the threat to our front country. That would be a huge win for us. If not, as I told you last night, we have these divisions staffed all the way over to Mission Canyon with several strike teams of engines, both Type 3 engines, the brush trucks, and Type 1 engines, the big fire engines. And people are prepping behind houses and doing everything they can to make sure when the fire comes down, we catch it. We also have a whole branch full of engines and crew people in here where the fire has already come down, and they are actively suppressing around the houses and taking care of all of this fire. So within a few days, some more of this will turn into black, as we talked about last night, which means we'll have a cooled edge that we can reliably hold. So efforts going strong here and successful. We're trying to catch here, and we're still preparing for the big picture. Then the bigger picture also is if we have to come all the way over to Mission Canyon, then we've basically brought fuel into the younger fuels that are the Jesucita fire. How many people were still around here were here for the Jesucita fire in 2009, okay? So some of you guys experienced that fun time with me. And we know that we got that fire that went all the way up to almost the Camino Cielo. If we run into that fuel bed that's only 9 years old, that will give us some advantages to fighting the fire. And we hope that we can at least stop it there if we don't get it done before then. Worst case scenario, if we don't get it stopped there, we right now are currently opening the Windy Gap fuel break, which goes one of the few places we can take bulldozers from the top of Camino Cielo all the way down to the front country and actually put an effective break in to stop fire moving laterally. So that's our plan on the front country. From there, we cut into San Ynez River, and from there we'll be tying into the younger fuel bed, the 2-year-old fuel bed of the Ray fire. And above that is the Zaca fire that's only 10 years old. And it's, again, a fuel bed that's younger fuels, means it's not going to burn as well, and will slow down and give us a chance to put it out. So, kind of an update on what we have going. I'll be around afterwards if you have questions, and I'm sure some of you will. We had a lot last night. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Pemberton. I'm one of the Deputy Incident Commanders for CAL FIRE Team. Sorry, I just switched from Team 3 to Team 4. And I represent both incident commanders, not only from the teams that have come outside your area, but the teams of your own firefighters that are on the lines side by side with all the resources that we've drawn in, not only statewide, but from out of state, to make sure that we are giving as much protection to you, your family, and to your valuables, whether that be your residences or whatnot. It's important for you to understand what we as the two, and I look at us as outsiders, both Team 4s that have come in. We're outsiders to your community, but what we try to do in our goal and our mission and our direction and our leaders' intent to our subordinates is we are here to stand up and support your local firefighters. We are your fire department. While we are here, we treat each and every one of you as if you're one of our own customers back in our own communities, and that is our leaders' intent, and that is our mission, and that is our direction. We understand the fire history that's happened along this front country of Santa Barbara. I've been here for several of the major fires that have occurred. As we've all seen, this is one we haven't had to this magnitude before, but I can assure you that we have got every resource that we have asked for in this valley ready to go to work whenever we're ready to deploy them, and we hope that we don't have to. One of the things that we're doing as an incident management teams is we're moving resources to this side. The fire is slowly starting to wind down on the Ventura side. We've already seen it entering Santa Barbara, as you guys have seen over the last couple of days, so we're moving one of our incident bases to support the troops on the line to a community park just off the 154. And lastly, I'd just like to remind everybody the Ready, Set, Go program. We've all been ready for a little while. Many of you are in warning areas, so you're set to go. And when we call for that mandatory evacuation, we need you to go. That allows us to be able to concentrate on the firefight. And I'm going to add one other slogan in there, and that's return, because it is not only is it just as important for us to get you out of the community, but our other priority, once we have it safe enough, we will promise to you that we will return you as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Poncho Smith. I am the District Ranger for the Santa Barbara and Ojai districts of the Los Padres National Forest. Thanks for coming to your meeting tonight. I was here last night. I didn't have an opportunity to speak to you except for some individual questions. One of the things I wanted to point out is one of the advantages and disadvantages of working for the U.S. Forest Service, and it's kind of interesting, is I have literally been on fires on the Canadian border, on the Mexican border, in North Carolina, on the Atlantic Ocean, and now in Santa Barbara on the Pacific Ocean. You will not find across the country better cooperation among firefighting entities than you have here. And I'll stand right up here and tell you that the cooperation we have is phenomenal. The way we get along and the work that we do, the work that these various, the federal, the state, the county, the local entities do is absolutely amazing. And it's a credit to the people here that are doing this work. Now maybe it's because we spend, as individuals, about 2 weeks a year on vacation, but we spend anywhere from 2 to 6 months a year with our brother firefighters on the White Fire, the Ray Fire, the Sherpa Fire, the Cuesta Fire, the Choro Fire, the Thomas Fire, the Soberanas Fire, and on and on and on. But I just want to assure you that you have at your disposal and working right now some of the best people in the United States of America. And I'm here to tell you that I've done a lot of this, and they're very, very good. Just another quick note is just for your information as you look at the map, and I realize, and as it should be, our efforts are focused on the urban interface, on the homes, and on the property, and on a life property. About half of this fire at this point is on National Forest land. It's moved out of and onto the National Forest. And so the firefight continues, and so we have two different types of firefights going on. We have the urban, we have Carpinteria, Summerlin, Montecito, the evacuations and that kind of thing, but we also have a firefight going on in the backcountry. And as Chris pointed out, you know, we have some advantage at the Ray fire. You know, it burned 2 years ago, it hasn't regrown, so it'll give us a chance to catch this a lot. But we are about 50% national forest on this fire right now. And with that, I thank you for your time. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Dr. Charity Dean. I'm the Public Health Officer for Santa Barbara County. I'm going to share with you some health updates. The first thing to share is how important it is to limit your exposure to the unhealthy air, especially if you're someone who's sensitive or has underlying health conditions. Although wearing the mask can help relieve symptoms for some people, many people, really the most important thing you can do is to limit your exposure. That means staying indoors and if you're able to, even leaving the area. If you're able to leave the area and get to cleaner air just for a few hours a day, that's going to significantly help your lungs function. The air quality index has now been unhealthy to very unhealthy to hazardous, now going on 4+ days. And so that can have a cumulative effect, again, especially on people that may have asthma or emphysema or heart problems. So be aware of how you're feeling and how your children are, and be aware that children, because they're much smaller than us, can be more likely to have symptoms exposed to the same unhealthy air. If you see ash and smoke in the air, that's different than the invisible 10 micron particles that we talk about when we reference the air quality index. Those particles are invisible. So although you might see smoke and ash in the air, really the best way of knowing how safe or hazardous the air is to look at the air quality index that measures the particles. The air quality index is posted for Santa Barbara County, our air.org. You can also find it for Ventura County and for San Luis Obispo County. So if you're thinking of leaving town to go to one of those locations, go ahead and check online. They are updating their air quality index as well. The N95 masks, or the technical term is respirators, the N95 respirators are still being distributed. By the end of today, the Public Health Department will have distributed over 200,000 respirators in Santa Barbara County. We've received some questions from community members who have underlying conditions, medical conditions, and they've asked, can I wear an N95 respirator? And the answer is, ask your primary care physician what they would recommend. For some people, it really helps relieve symptoms because it's filtering out those particles. For others, it can actually make it harder to breathe. So we recommend that people ask their doctors if that's something that they should be wearing. And if you're one of those people, then we'll continue to distribute those masks. Also, these masks can be reused. You want to get a new mask if it becomes soiled or wet or bent out of shape, so you can no longer press it across your nose to get that airtight seal around your face. Once that happens, you know, if you're stuffing your mask in your pocket and then pulling it out in a wad, it's probably bent out of shape, so don't do that. Keep it in the same shape that it is when you fit it onto your face, and then you can reuse it. So you don't necessarily need a new mask every day. These can be reused for many days. The way to know if you have a proper fit is you're looking for that airtight seal around your face. Make sure you're pressing down on the metal piece that goes across the nose. Metal piece goes on top. For ash cleanup, we advise against extensive ash cleanup while the ash is still falling. If you do feel the need to clean up certain areas that have ash, please use a wet rag and gently wipe the ash off. Avoid anything that could further aerosolize the ash, like leaf blowers or anything else that's going to stir the ash up into the air. We at the Public Health Department are working around the clock. We have a whole team of very dedicated staff members, from evacuating hundreds of animals to helping with the shelter, to working with our skilled nursing facilities and coordinating with other healthcare facilities. And we really appreciate all the support that we've received from the public. If you have specific questions, please go to the county's website and you'll see all of our latest press releases posted, including any new guidance on health. And I'll stay around for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Captain Ponce with the California Highway Patrol here in Santa Barbara area. I want to let you know that the CHP is working in cooperation with the Sheriff's Department, providing safety patrols in the evacuated communities. And we are currently manning 20 fixed post roadway closures along the 192 corridor. And I wanted to advise everyone that fire equipment is staging along the 154 in anticipation of the fire continuing moving in that direction. So as you're traveling along the 154, please drive very carefully, as there may be large equipment along the side of the road. Again, I continue to ask for everyone's cooperation with our officers at these fixed posts. They're in place to keep people out of dangerous areas or to keep them from interfering with firefighting protection. And I want to echo my partner's words from the U.S. Forest Service. I've worked in 4 counties with the Department of the CHP, and this by far is the best cooperation that I've seen. Our partners in the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, Fire Department, we have stellar folks leading these agencies. So I thank them for their cooperation and efforts in this firefight. And I just want to continue to thank the public for your continued support. So thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'm Bernard Malecki, Under Sheriff of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office. And besides echoing the praise that's been heaped on the fire service, who have just done an extraordinary job over the last few days under very difficult and evolving circumstances, I also want to commend the men and women of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office and the Highway Patrol for the evacuations that were carried out. Go ahead. That were carried out under very, very difficult circumstances, particularly on Sunday morning and into this week. To date, nearly 100 law enforcement officers, members of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office, Santa Barbara Search and Rescue, California Highway Patrol, Ventura Sheriff's Office, and Ventura Search and Rescue have been involved in both evacuating a number of areas as well as setting up hard closure zones. To date, there are 7,200 people under mandatory evacuation and 34,000 people under evacuation warning orders. Since the briefing yesterday, there have not been any additional mandatory evacuation zones established. The issuance of further orders, particularly in the area north of Highway 192 and east of Mission Canyon, will be dependent on the progress of the fire. If you are in a warning area, as has been stated several times, please ensure that you are ready to go, because that notice, as we saw the other night, may not come at the most convenient or opportune time. So please make sure that you are ready, as has been requested. A couple of reminders: if you leave, if you're in a warning area, that your items, and particularly those that you review as irreplaceable or critically important, need to be packed and need to be ready to go. And as you prepare to leave, make sure that you unplug any electronic equipment that you're not taking with you and that you intend to leave behind. If you are in an area that has been evacuated and you have departed your home, you may rest assured that the area is being patrolled. As Captain Ponce indicated, there are hard road closures being enforced by the Highway Patrol, and there are patrols, both plainclothes and uniform, inside those areas. For those people who live in warning zones, we would ask that you be extra vigilant in the spirit of neighborhood watch. There are people who may have voluntarily evacuated. Please keep an eye on homes, and please do not hesitate to call the Sheriff's Office or the Santa Barbara Police. We are responding to routine calls for service in spite of this, and we will respond to any requests that you have. I would tell you that this morning in the area of San Ysidro and 192, thanks to some vigilance by some firefighters and by some neighbors, we did actually arrest a looter this morning attempting to steal some property out of someone's garage, and that person has now been evacuated to the main jail. A couple of other things, the district attorney's office and the sheriff will be issuing a joint communication probably either later this afternoon or tomorrow, but I want to remind you about two sections that are critically important. One is price gouging. Section 396 of the Penal Code makes it a crime to raise the prices more than 10% over the sort of normal market price. And in addition, the district attorney and the sheriffs are asking you to be very aware of any attempts by people to sort of present themselves as contractors who may help you make repairs or offer to assist you in some fashion. The sheriff's office and the district attorney will be working very closely together to make sure that those crimes are appropriately prosecuted. Lastly, if you have a question about whether or not you are in a mandatory evacuation area or a warning area, please go to the County of Santa Barbara's website. There is an interactive link to show you where that is. And you can also go to that website for the latest information on the Thomas Fire. And like all of my colleagues, I will be here as well as other members of the Sheriff's Office staff to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheriff. We're going to move into our question and answer portion of the evening, but before we do, I wanted to just share with you an additional resource. There's a small army of people that you don't see. They're not out there on a fire engine. They're sitting in a cubicle or in a converted office space, and they're converting files into PDFs and maps, and they're uploading stuff to the internet, and they're in your emergency operations centers here in Santa Barbara County. They're in Ventura County. We have a lot of people that are trying to get you information that's timely and that is accurate. One of the places where you can find that, the sheriff just referenced the Santa Barbara County website. That's a fantastic website. The CAL FIRE website links to the Thomas Fire. You can go to that at www.fire.ca.gov. You go over to the incident information page. It'll take you right to all the incidents that are going on in the state. That's the Thomas Fire. It'll tell you the latest information. You can link to maps. But the thing that'll be very useful for you guys here in Santa Barbara County is it links right to the Santa Barbara County webpage. And this evacuation map, you can actually punch in your address in the top, and it'll tell you if you're in an evacuated area or not. So we offer that to you. That is up and running. A lot of people don't know that's there. So if you can share that with your friends and family that are in the area, that would be fantastic. If you don't have any questions tonight and you're ready to go, we ask that you just quietly exit the auditorium. And if you have some questions, we're going to get to them. Now, I know that we're all creatures of habit, and so you probably are sitting in the same sections that you sat in yesterday, yes? Or did you try to outsmart me here and the guys that were over there came to this side? So how we're going to do our question and answer time is this. We have somebody with a microphone that will move to a section, and today we'll start over here. And our goal is to answer every single question. Now, we're not going to be able to do that necessarily in a large group format. So I just ask that you think about the nature of your question, whether or not it's appropriate for everybody to hear it. So with that, is there anybody in this section over here that has a question that they'd like to ask? That is amazing. All right, fantastic. That means our speakers did a really good job. What's that? Oh yeah, can we get the lights to come up a little bit?
Can I answer a question from last night?
Absolutely, yeah, come on up.
One of the questions that we get asked often is how people can help. And there are a number of places online that you can find, especially the American Red Cross, that you can donate to, or places you can volunteer. But I would also encourage you to check on your neighbors, check on your neighborhood. Like was mentioned, neighborhood watch, watching out for people's homes that have self-evacuated. And if you don't know the people next to you and across the street, knock on their door and make sure they're okay. Because of the air quality, there's many people that are forced to stay home and can't go outside because of health reasons. They might need groceries, they might need food for their pet, they might need you to pick up their medicines at the pharmacy for them because they need another inhaler. So I think in this situation, you know, we can take care of each other and help each other through it, and maybe help our neighbors and our neighborhood avoid, you know, having to run out of medications or run out of food. So that's one thing that, that everyone can do. If you have any specific health questions, again, I'll be here afterwards.
Question right here. Yes, I live on Shepherd Mesa, and I saw in the paper there was a flare-up last night. I wondered if any buildings or homes got damaged with that flare-up.
I'm looking for Ray Navarro to give me a thumbs up. Any more? I don't think so.
Yeah, step out.
Okay, I do not believe any more damage in the Shepherd Mesa area since the original. A few were damaged the first night, the night before last, in Gubernador Canyon, and nothing further in Shepherd's Mesa. The question was, did any homes get damaged in the Shepherd's Mesa area? We did not, as far as I know, lose any more since the night before last.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that you asked that. I have a more general question than that, because a lot of the residents of Shepherd Mesa don't know if their house was one of those houses. Folks on elsewhere in the foothills above Carpinteria want to know if their house has been destroyed or not, and when is that information going to be released?
So we have been, since the second day of this incident, had a damage assessment team working in conjunction on the Ventura side. Now we've moved to the Santa Barbara side. I know that they went through the area that we believed that we had some losses in, I believe today. I believe they've got the majority of that work done. As that work comes in at the end of every day, we're giving that to the EOC for dissemination to the public. So we should know something by late tonight or tomorrow morning, I would hope.
Thank you. We have viewers watching on Facebook Live, and this question came in. They want to know, where is the fire now and what is it threatening?
Thank you.
I'll get your ops map. Or your fire map.
Okay.
Okay, the fire just burned through the area on the backside of Camino Cielo, a little drainage called Escondido Canyon, and slopped up on top of Romero Saddle, should be somewhere right around here. And the fire on the front here is stopped above Toro Canyon. The fire back here has tied into, and actually up here has burned into the old Zaca footprint from 2007 up here. And so I can show you details of that footprint and these other fire histories on a map I brought in, and they're going to post up here at the end of the meeting. Okay? Does that help? Or do you?
Where's it going? Where's it going was the other question.
Okay, the current spread is backing fire off the front side here. We're trying to keep it down here. It's going into the San Ynez drainage. We're trying to stop it. It's going continually to the west from its current location if we don't put it out. And that's why we're putting all of the aircraft we can on it right now. Okay? Does that help? So the main spread of this whole fire now is to push in this direction, to the west.
Right here.
Go ahead.
Oh, hello. I don't have a car. Are there shuttles to these evacuation centers? I can take a bus, but they stop running at 10 o'clock. I can take a Lyft or an Uber, that's not a problem, but do you offer shuttles?
Anybody able to answer that? Okay, I do not. I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, let me just refresh us on the ground rules here. We actually got 2 microphones today, so we're going to raise our hands. Our guys in the uniforms are going to come to you. We're going to wait until they get there. We'll call on them one at a time and we'll ask our questions. All right, we will get to your question. All right, where are we at? Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, thank you all for coming today to keep us informed. I had a public health question about the long-term effects of exposure to the particulate, particularly with children. We have small children in our family who are out of school this week. We've been keeping them indoors as much as possible, but would that be a consideration of trying to get them out of town, or if they're mostly indoors, are they pretty safe?
That's a good question. Regarding the indoor air, these tiny invisible particles can get indoors. Granted, it's less so than outdoors, but it's important to understand that even being indoors in an area with unhealthy air, like Santa Barbara or Carpinteria, you are still going to be exposed to some of that unhealthy air. So really the best thing, especially for children, is to give your lungs a break, get them out of town. If you can get them up north or down south, even for 4 hours a day, that's really going to help, and it's going to help them breathe easier. The particles from the smoke can damage the lungs, and that's true. There can be long-term health effects, especially for people that have severe underlying lung disease. But for the majority of people, our lungs can clear this and can recover, but we need to help them do that. Part of that is staying hydrated, keeping our mucous membrane, so from your throat all the way up to your mouth, hydrated. But the other part is just limiting the exposure. So the best thing that we can do is to give our lungs a break, particularly true for children. So my advice would be, if you have small children, if you're able to get them to healthy air for a few hours a day, that's really going to help.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight. And Chip, I know you're down there somewhere. As you know, I'm your next door neighbor, and I just want to say I hope your station stays safe. I have 2 questions. Number one, I heard earlier that the mandatory area had been moved from East Valley Road down to the freeway. I don't know if that's true. And secondly, and this is a little difficult, why not let the backcountry burn, reducing fuel for future risk, and concentrate the resources on the habitable area?
We didn't move. You want to handle that first?
Yeah. I'll take the evacuation question, which may be simpler than the second one. The mandatory evacuation area was not moved. It still remains at Highway 192 north to Camino Cielo.
Perfect. Mark Fontillo, Fire Management Officer for the Santa Barbara Ranger District.
So follow up with the question of why not let the backcountry burn. I'm going to give it to you short. It's a very long, complex topic, but the Santa Ynez Drainage is a watershed that's very crucial to the water that is provided to Montecito and Santa Barbara and Goleta. Years ago, that district was developed to be under prescribed fire, and we were essentially getting money from the city to manage that land. This is a long time ago, 30s, 40s. When you burn up that watershed, those reservoirs back there fill up with silt. And we've already been through the drought and numerous fires, And so we can't really just let it burn because of the long-term effects of the water to this city. So that's it in a nutshell. If you want to talk later, I'll be around to discuss it further.
Yeah, good answer, Mark. Thank you. And the other part of that is, as firefighters out there today and on this fire right now, our efforts are obviously concentrating in priorities. We set priorities every single day. Our priorities are where we're losing structures. That's why the focus in all of my presentation talks about the front. We have a few resources. We definitely want to get the back done. We need to protect the watershed and we need to do the job. But we prioritize and we do put priority on values at risk, just so you know.
Just curious, the fire over 192 over in Cart, just what's it doing now and expected behavior?
Okay, say it again. Could you ask the question again?
The fire over 192, that stretch of it?
Yeah, okay, yes, down there right above Carpinteria. It's still a backing fire in certain areas, and most of it is just backing. Today's onshore flow has helped us because it's not getting that easterly influence. It's not getting down canyon push in any kind. So it's a little bit of backing fire in certain areas, and we're having some success putting it and holding it. Putting it out and holding it in its place.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My question is regarding the Calvin condors, and I'd like to know if you could give us an update on the Mount Hopper condor sanctuary. Thank you.
Condors? You got that? Okay.
The question is in reference to the Hopper Mountain Condor Sanctuary, and the Condor Sanctuary is safe. Okay, there is fire on the very edge of Bear Haven, but we're not real concerned about that because it's hit the rocks and stuff in Bear Haven and just kind of punking around slow and not doing much. So Condor Sanctuary it's in good shape.
All right, we got time for about 2 more questions, and then we will go break out and we'll go one-on-one with you guys offline. So right here, yeah.
I know you said you wanted a quick return as soon as it was safe, but I'm kind of wondering if there's an estimated time for the people that are in mandatory evacuations or the ones that are in the voluntary, potential mandatory evacuations, for when you expect them to be able to go home.
Okay. We would love to be able to say that the fire is out tomorrow and you can go home the next day. I'm not there yet, but we're pushing everything like I told you, efforts are being made to stop the spread of the fire right now. So, again, I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that we're going to hold it tonight and tomorrow and the next day, and we'll get you home by the end of the week. But I can't guarantee that. And as far as this, as long as the fire continues to spread across the front country, we got to protect you guys and protect as best we can your houses. Okay? So, optimistically, I'm hopeful, but don't count on that.
Hi, I've been following a website that shows it's like a heat map from space, and it has a series of red and orange and yellow dots. I'm sure you're familiar with it. This morning there were 5 red dots, meaning fire within the last 12 hours. 2 of them were at the top of San Ysidro Road at 192. There were another 3 right around the area of Cold Springs School. Now this cluster is around 4 to 5 miles, I believe, from where it shows the rest of the fire. I've heard nothing about this on the news. Is there something burning around Cold Springs School and the top of San Ysidro?
I hope not. And I'm not aware of any 5-mile spot fire. Do you?
So that's one of the many tools that we use, and that's why it takes us a little bit of time to validate that information and get it back out to you. It's from a satellite called a MODIS. It flies over the Earth many times a day. It gives us intelligence and lets us know, hey, we need to go look there, but it is not 100% accurate. And I'll give you an example. When we had the fires in Northern California early on in the season, one of them was called the Detweiler, and we were relying on that information pretty heavily. Well, it kept bringing back heat signatures from the middle of the lake, and there wasn't even a boat on the lake. So we use that information, we send troops out into the field to validate it and then bring it back, but I don't believe that there's any fire in that general area.
Yes, no, there is not fire at the top of San Ysidro and 192 or near Station 2 by Colton's School.
Thank you. All right, it's our goal to host another one of these meetings tomorrow, right here, same time, 4 o'clock, and provide you with further updates and information. We will remain here on site. If you guys would like to get direct with us one-on-one, hopefully we can answer your questions. Thank you very much.